Hey, good day, everybody, and welcome to the webinar, The Power of One, where we will be looking at unlocking business value with Dell PowerEdge servers and the Intel Xeon 6th processor. I'm Martijn Groothuis, and with me I have...
Jani Alch, and I will be covering the Intel part of the presentation. A pleasure to be here as always. Back to you, Martijn.
Thank you. So let's get going and look at the agenda that we're going to present. So first off is the welcome, which we already did. We're going to look at some of the market trends and the rise of one-socket rack servers and customer challenges. Next generation PowerEdge one-socket servers, a little bit more product deep dive, what Dell is offering to the market. Customer success stories on infrastructure consolidation and TCO impact. A brief look at smart selections, a fast and easy modernization of transactional buyers, and a closing with key takeaways. So thank you very much. Let's get going. So one of the things that Dell has been doing for many, many years or decades already is help building the future of IT, especially on the server part, so the compute part of IT, which we'll be focusing upon. The idea is that with the current rise of AI and other challenges that customers are having, it becomes very important for a vendor like Dell to be able to give customers future-ready infrastructure so that they are prepared for the next wave of technologies that will come along. And it becomes very important to look at how we can fit certain things in platforms because for some types of workloads, a generic workhorse or a generic server just won't fit the bill anymore because it won't be able to do all the things that we want it to do. The other thing that we are focusing on is customer-centric design. So how can we anticipate customer needs before they even arise and to help with a unified approach across all of the segment that Dell services, from small to medium business to large enterprise to hyperscalers to cloud service providers and anything in between. All of our PowerEdge servers are built around key tenants. We are very much trusted in the industry. We have the x86 server revenue for 31 consecutive quarters. We have x86 server units for 34 consecutive quarters. So we are really a trusted partner in the industry to deliver compute. Another key pillar for us is intelligence. So how can we make sure that you as an end customer can save as much money and optimize your TCO of managing your compute environment? So the way that we do that is through things like the iDRAC, where we will help you automate and roll out as easily as possible, as well as help you with lifecycle management through our management products like OpenManage Enterprise or any of the other products that we have that can integrate with third-party ecosystems. Security is also very important. This is something that is paramount for Dell. This is never an afterthought. For everything that we do, security is built in. It's not bolted on. We have a secure supply chain. We have secure server lifecycle management. We have Silicon Root of Trust so that we can verify the boot resilience for both the iDRAC as well as the BIOS so that nobody can tamper with any of the code that's inside of the server, as well as that we have rigorous data protection products in place. Looking at the purpose built, this is already alluding a little bit to what I referred to earlier, is that in the past, a lot of compute was pretty generic. So you could use a server for a database or virtualization. It was pretty easy to re-leverage certain types of platforms or to re-leverage certain types of server models. With the rise of, well, AI, but also things like Edge, everything is diversifying more. So for AI servers, we need to have massive amount of GPUs, which require massive amounts of power, but also massive amount of cooling. So all of that just doesn't fit in a normal 1 or 2U server anymore. What I also already talked about is Edge, for instance. Edge devices have different unique requirements. They require their own air filtration. They would have higher environmental temperatures. They would have their own air filtration, for instance, physical security on top of that. So all of that is diversifying our portfolio. Looking at the sustainability, we find it very important to make sure that every server that we sell is as energy efficient as humanly possible. So obviously a specific Intel CPU will have a TDP and it won't matter what kind of server that you buy because that TDP is the TDP that is required. However, all of the other components, the system board design, the fan placements, the powering of the fans, the DIMMs and how they are positioned will actually in the end determine how much power a server is using. And this is something that Dell focuses on very much to make sure that the energy intensity goes down as much as possible. So the idea there is that you can do more with the wattage that you have from a transactional perspective. We already touch upon AI, but these are right now the fastest growing AI platforms. So AI within Dell on the PowerEdge, one of the great systems there is a Dell PowerEdge XE9680, which can house up to 8 GPUs that are meshed together. And these are used for instance, large language models and so forth. Looking at smart modernization and achieving ongoing IT evolutions to meet growing application needs. So what are smart modernization solutions? So the idea is that we, together with Intel, for instance, have already a 30-year partnership and are still counting those years going forward. And we work closely together with Intel to make sure that we can deliver systems that are intelligent and streamlined in workload management, have connected solutions enabling them seamless integration, have scalable architectures meeting growing data demands, and have advanced features supporting secure and reliable systems. The idea is to make sure that we build platforms that can take the most advantage of what Intel is bringing to market in their CPU space. This is always striking a balance. So we have to understand where the market is going. We have to understand the technology that our partners are coming with, like Intel, and then look and see how we implement those. And that often means that we need to make difficult decisions. But the idea is that we do innovation preparation. So when we talk to customers, 80% of organizations feel that their outdated tech is holding them back. And they don't have the means and options to go forward because they have a lot of tech debt legacy. Scalability concerns. 81% of IT leaders tell us that they are concerned about data center capacity, both from a power and cooling perspective. With the rapid rise of AI, power and cooling is becoming the foremost issue for any customer that we talk to. They also see growing threats, older servers and software increased security risks. So it might be that they're still running servers that are end of life and they don't get any security updates anymore. So that also becomes an issue for those customers. The other thing that we are hearing back, and this is pretty much a given in the IT industry ever since I was in it, is budget constraints. Everybody needs to do more with less, and that's just becoming more and more up the forefront as well. Okay, looking a little bit about or taking a little bit deeper dive in our PowerEdge R series, so the rack series families that we have, and especially on those that are one socket optimized, which I'll go into in a little bit. To give you an idea about our rack series, they are very performant, efficient, and very resilient from a security perspective. Looking at data center optimizations, for the majority of systems, especially with hypervisors, we can do a 5-to-1 consolidation. So you can replace 5 old servers with a single one. And I know we have some slides on that going forward to actually give you a little bit more insight there, what is capable. We have seamless management. Again, this is driven by our iDRAC first strategy. The iDRAC is leveraging Redfish APIs, giving you the ability to integrate that into your own orchestration tooling or by leveraging the flexible management options that Dell provides with, for instance, Open Managed Enterprise or any of the other tools that we provide. Looking at the different products that we have in the R series with Intel CPUs. So we have the R770 and the R670. These are our 1 and 2U dual socket Intel systems. Right now, the latest generation is available with the Xeon 6 CPUs. And they support up to 32 DIMMs because it's an 8-channel memory architecture, 2 DIMMs per channel, 2 CPUs is 32 DIMMs. We have a wider range of different drive options from SATA, NVMe, and the EDSF E3 drives, giving you unparalleled performance on NVMe Gen 5 drives. We have GPU support as well, single width GPUs as well as double width GPUs. But we have to understand that going forward, especially when GPUs are becoming more and more powerful, that it will become harder and harder to fit those high performing GPUs in a standard 1 or 2U rack server. Other than that, the latest generation has the iDRAC 10, which I already mentioned. And then one of the things that is new these days is that we now also have the R570 and the R470. So to give you a little bit of background, in the past, in our R6 and R7 series, so in the 16th generation with the R760 and the R660, customers could order those with a single socket configuration. So it would be a dual socket system board, but we would only populate one CPU, and then we would deliver that, and you would lose half of your memory capacity. You would lose some riser configurations because we wouldn't have the PCIe lanes available. However, when we started to look at designing our current generation of servers, because of all the complexity that comes with that, also new technologies coming in like CXL and the ability to run CXL memory expansion, we decided to go away from that approach to allow a dual socket server to be sold as a single socket configuration. We now actually have dedicated R570 and R470 single socket 1 and 2U servers. The great benefit of that is that you're not paying for a system board that has components that are not being leveraged. Also, because there are no components there that are not being leveraged, it's also more efficient because you're not powering components that are not used. The other thing is that we can also then start leveraging some of the capabilities that Intel is bringing to market with feature-rich single socket CPUs, which I think JJ will also go into. Looking at these systems, again, they're in a 1 and a 2U traditional rack mount. They are single socket with Intel. They have up to 16 DIMMs, 8-channel memory architecture times 2. We have the same drive formats as that we have in the 2-socket variants, so SATA, NVMe, EDSF, E3, single width and dual width GPUs, and all of the normal networking card configuration that you would expect from a Dell server. Going further down in the stack, we have our R3 and R2 series. So these are our Intel Xeon E servers or the Intel Xeon 63000 series. These are lower end single CPU systems that only have up to 4 DIMMs. They have limited drive configuration. So these are really either small, medium business or remote branch offices where you don't need as much compute as that you would typically need. And these are also in a 1U rack format. Looking at the server consolidation that we already talked about in the past. So this is an example where we had a conversation with a customer that was still on our 14th generation of servers. And they had M1000E chassis with M640 blades. So they had up to 80 of those M640 blades with dual socket CPUs, 12 cores per CPU. And they had those servers in 5 different chassis. The nice thing about that is when you start consolidating after doing a live optics, so you can run a Dell live optics to actually measure what you're using in your environment. And we can use all that data to calculate what we can do with a replacement when you do a refresh. So when we looked at the proposed new solution, we could replace their M1000E chassis with 20 R470s with 1 terabyte and 1 socket 48 core CPUs. What are your benefits when you do that? Well, to be honest, you have newer systems that are more powerful from a compute perspective. You have much less space because an M1000 chassis is 10U high, while an R470 is only 1U. So you go from 40 rack units to 20 rack units. You go from 160 cores to 960 cores. You go from 1,920 cores to 960 cores. But those cores are much more performant, so you get the same performance out of that as the old systems. You get much more memory, which is for the majority of customers when they're doing virtualization, the primary constraint, as well as VM capacity. They got a lot more VM capacity, but now the most interesting thing comes. Power and cooling, you spend a lot less money on power and cooling because it's much more energy efficient. So also on top of that, the licensing costs can go down because you have a lot less sockets that are needed. So overall, it's a much better TCO for the end customer to do that tech refresh and go to 1U rack mounts. Looking over the 3-year savings, that 1.3 million over 3 years that you can save with that. When you look at the cost of these products, 20 R470s at 24K per is about $480,000 investment. So you actually pay for that investment in about a 13-month period. Looking a little bit more into the products, we have the Dell PowerEdge R570. So this is a 2U, as already said, single socket server where we have the Intel Xeon 6 up to 330 watts power available, up to 144 cores with the E cores, 16 memory DIMMs, so 4 terabytes of memory. We have different flexible I/O options with networking cards and OCP slots, as well as that we now also offer cold IO support, so that it will actually have a reverse airflow, and all of the comms is on the front end of the server instead of the back end. And we also have flexible storage options from 3.5 inch to 2.5 inch and the E3S drives. The 470 is pretty much the equivalent, but it's a 1U system. So you have a little bit less number of drives, obviously, and you have less PCIe slot availability because you only have 1U instead of the 2U. Other than that, it's very similar to the R570. Going down further in the stack, we have the R360, which is a single socket Raptor Lake CPU with up to 8 cores, 4 DIMMs, PCIe networking cards available, and some GPU support as well. And we have 3.5 inch and 2.5 inch drive options in this machine. The other thing is that this also comes with an optional filter bezel to be able to do dust or grease proof filtering. So ideally, if you have an edge location, either it being a carpeted edge or for instance a restaurant, those can be fitted on there as well. Looking at the R260, this is a single Raptor Lake again, up to 8 cores, 4 DIMMs, and some flexible options with the networking cards, as well as 3.5 inch and 2.5 inch drive options. And also this one is optional, available with a filter bezel. JJ, I'll hand it over to you to do an update on the Intel portion.
Thank you, Martijn. So let's talk a little bit now about the technology that is within those PowerEdge servers that Martijn was talking about. So when we look at what we have today from Intel in the data center, let me jump to the next slide. Okay, we already talked about Xeon 6 processors. We talked about E-cores, P-cores, we talked about Gaudi accelerators. But for today's session, we want to focus really on the one-socket offering. So we are going to be looking at the P-cores and especially a subset of P-cores, specially designed that optimize the one-socket CPUs. And then, of course, we are going to look at as well on the Intel Xeon 6300s, which are those specific CPUs dedicated to entry-level servers that are there to boost the performances of a small and medium business. So first of all, let's talk about the rich one-socket configurations. As Martijn was telling you, what we basically did now something that we never did before. We created dedicated platforms that are part of the PowerEdge R470 and R570 that are single socket only. So we are having one CPU to power these servers, and that one CPU can be a rich one socket configuration, which means that the CPU itself is really powerful and it can definitely replace 2 CPUs from the past. We have seen that many customers are looking at one CPU configurations, but it really doesn't make sense to make a 2-socket server a 1-socket server anymore because of all of the materials and about the functionality that you would be not using really and would be taking up space. So having a dedicated platform where we have a PowerEdge server that is meant to be powered by one CPU only, and then having a special CPU that is designed to be a rich one-socket configuration makes really much sense. So what are we looking at the rich one-socket servers? They will have 16 to 80 cores at 150 to 350 TDP, which is really compelling. But quite interestingly, 136 lanes of PCIe 5.0. So that's a lot of I/O. And in this example that we have down here, we can actually replace 2 CPUs from the past that are 32 cores and are consuming 225 watts with only one CPU that has the same amount of cores but will consume less energy. And being, of course, a newer version, it will have higher performance. So in the end, we are getting, in this example, 13% higher performance and 64% higher performance per watt, which is something that is quite interesting to many, many customers. And of course, these CPUs feature all of the AI accelerators and various other accelerators for cryptography, for compression, for load balancing, for data streaming, and of course, in-memory analytics and confidential computing features as well. Well, that's a quite compelling package. Another interesting example how to utilize the rich one sockets is, for example, for content distribution network CDNs and storage nodes. So if you think about it, with this one Intel Xeon 6 CPU, you are getting two NICs at 16 PCIe and up to 24 NVMe SSDs, for example, at 4 times PCIe. What that means is that comparing it to a fifth gen Intel Xeon processor, you can get twice the native NVMe storage capacity per node and up to almost 2.5 times higher throughput against your 4-year-old system. And as mentioned, of course, on the CPU, you have AI and crypto accelerators as well. On the link, there is an article explaining this in quite more detail. So I think that is quite compelling. Now, I want to touch base a little bit about the one socket rich configurations and how they compare to our competitors, because of course, it's not something completely new. We have seen one socket servers as well on PowerEdge, maybe with a different CPU. So when we compare it to the competitors and we take into account that it's really a unique offering, when you take a rich one-socket Intel-powered PowerEdge server, you are getting higher PCIe lane counts, you are getting faster memory speeds, you are getting built-in accelerators for AI and other key workloads. Of course, you get a broader range of core count, as you have seen from 16 to 80. And at the same core count, you get lower TDPs. That is how energy efficient they are. And of course, at the same core count as well, you are getting better list prices. And that is quite interesting. So I think it will be a lot of demand that we can drive towards the rich one socket offerings, as those are something quite new, quite compelling, and offer a really great package. Now, Martin was talking at the end of the presentation about the R360 and R260. So let's see what they are powered with now. Those two entry-level servers, or my first server type of devices, they are now powered by the Intel Xeon 6300. So that's a new refresh that we introduced just recently. And it's about 8 new processors for single socket servers that are featuring 8, 6, or 4 CPU cores. Now, if you would compare it to 2 generations back, it's 1.6 times almost average performance gain. And when you compare it to the latest CPU that was sitting in the same systems just a half a year back, you would still get 1.3 times more performance. Now, these CPUs are quite interesting because of the high frequency. So they can go up to almost 6 gigahertz, and that is with the Turbo Boost technology. Now, they support 128 gigabit of DDR5 memory, which speeds up to 4,800 MTS. And of course, we extended on the number of PCIe lanes that we have. So these CPUs are now addressing a higher frequency, a better performance, better expandability with more PCIe line support, and better memory support as well. And not to say just that, of course, it's happening at similar price points. So we are getting a lot of new tech, a lot of performance for essentially same dollar amounts. Essential performance, expandability, and reliability for entry-level servers. That's what we are going with here. And of course, why would you upgrade? Well, as always, when we are talking about upgrading to the latest infrastructure, it's all about reducing the risk, reducing the cost and downtimes, and improving the efficiency. So that's quite important. And together with this, we actually now have introduced for Q3 smart selection offers. So we are going to give you the latest and greatest technology packaged in really interesting price points. So what is a smart selection offers on the one socket configurations? We are offering Smart Select offer catalog across most of the Europe. It's really easy to use because we are having one flexible offer by platform that you can tailor to your needs. That means that we are giving you a special promotion or a special Smart Select offer on all of the servers that Martijn was talking about, and you can configure it if you want to set the core counts, to set the number of memory that you need, whatever you might desire. But the great part of that is that we are giving you the best price and regular promotions to accelerate your sales. So we currently have on the 16th generation, which is refreshed with the new Intel Xeon 6300 CPU, the R260 and R360, and on the 17th generation, which you can configure as the rich one socket, the R740 and R570. So with those, you are getting really the latest and greatest technology into your data center at the best possible price points as well. Well, and I think that is everything that we had for today. So many thanks, Martijn, for the PowerEdge introduction, and I hope to be here soon again talking about another interesting Intel technologies in PowerEdge servers.
Thank you, JJ. Everybody, have a great day, and until next time.